Thank you for jumping on the Rolling Pin podcast. It's a podcast I started in 2020 as a result of COVID, trying to stay active. I got rid of my sofa and I put a desk here and decided to talk about wrestling. And, it just kept spiraling down and spiraling down until we got to the sports card. So, everybody who's listening right now, I have Rob England from Los Angeles.
I'm in Northern California, up in Humboldt County,
Yeah,
up
nice
near
to
the Oregon border, actually. So,
nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And thank you for jumping on tonight. I wanted to talk about these sports cars because just the overall craze it's been on the upswing as I've been looking at basketball, as I've been looking at football, as I've been looking at just even what Pokemon now they got like sports cars going on now and they're just running rapid. But I don't think that the wave has hit wrestling yet. I feel like it will. I don't know. You seem a little bit of an older gentleman than I am. So have you been collecting sports cars before? And is it something have you seen before? Fill me in on what you think is happening right now with sports cars as it pertains to wrestling, for my knowledge and
yeah.
everybody else's knowledge.
So I've been collecting wrestling cards for 22 years now, and that's on eBay.
Strictly
And
wrestling.
I'm going to disagree with you. The market has never been hotter for wrestling. It continually goes up from week to week. We're seeing record-setting prices, and it's been amazing to see the upswing in wrestling collectibles. And I think there was a lot of fear once COVID hit that markets would crater and that there would be opportunities to, buy cheap or cheaper than, previous months. But
Mm.
it's escalated from month to month, and we're seeing record-setting prices even in wrestling than ever before.
So you're saying thank you for that information. And everybody, I'm new to the collector, so I'm only talking from my experience, but that's why we brought him on so he can share his. So thank you. So you said 22 years, right? And
Yes,
you're saying that this is the are you saying that this is the hottest time to collect these wrestling sports cars than ever?
than ever, 100%,
Oh
thousand
well.
percent. It's never been hotter.
Yeah, I seen the rocks card, which is gonna lead me into my next question later about your rocks cards that I saw. But leads me into the next question of I guess well not even a question, just the statement again of the rocks sports card selling from the University of Miami was like 46,000 $100
Yes.
dollar.
So this is what my reference point is as far as the market being hot. So I used to have that Dwayne Johnson University of Miami, and they call it the Bumblebee card
That
with the
same
little
one.
perforations. Yes. And I used to have that in an 8. And I'm more of a high-end collector, and I really didn't like the 8. So I got rid of the 8, always knowing that I wanted to get a 10 or a 9. And looking back at eBay, this was just this last May, and there were numerous tins up on eBay, and they were up in the high sevens, as in 700s. And I made an offer, and the seller counter offered me, I think it might have been around 725,
For which card?
$725 for the
For the
Rock
same
Bumblebee card.
I got you.
So you know, I consider myself pretty thorough and as far as my collecting. And you could go to the PSA site, and I was doing some research. And when that card came up for a true auction just in previous months, that card had sold for just over $500 for about 525.
Mm,
And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, do I really want to pay, an extra $200 on this card for what it's went,
mhm,
previously? And so I waited, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
mm,
And then the ones that are up on eBay for about 1,000. So I missed out, just over 700. Now they're at 1,000. And, I was all thinking, do I want to pay, another 300? And so I hold out, and then all of a sudden those are gone.
I got
And
you.
so then all of a sudden I'm kind of realizing I'm missing the boat on these rock rookie cards. And near the end of 2020, it goes up on eBay, and one sells for 10,000. One of my
But oh
friends
my
actually sold
goodness.
his for 10,000. So just in a matter of May through November, that thing went from 700 to 10,000 to 14,000.
And then recently that one with 45, 46.
So yeah, then recently it went for 46. I heard that there was a couple private sales, so there's 30 of them that
Mm.
it went for 70,000, two sales
Mm.
at
Not on eBay.
70,000 off eBay,
Off eBay.
private sales. And
Mm.
then there was one in the vault for a pre-war card collector at 90,000 last week that sold.
Where are
And
these?
so they're
Where are
deceased.
these? I didn't mean to cut you up, but where are these private auctions or these private sales? Like, what do they? Do they have like a? Is it like a expo or like a card convention where people meet up and they go a little bit beyond eBay to do this or what? Because you might know.
I just heard, through the grapevine of collectors, as far as that there were some private sales, and the thing is after that $46,000 sale, you had people like Gary V posting. He was acting like he was biting into like
Yeah, I
his
seen that picture.
tab.
He has one. He has one of
Yes,
those
and he
cards.
has a 10, and he knew the cultural significance. I mean, he's a
Hmm.
really bright guy, so he knew. And then if you're paying attention on social media, the 46,000, I believe, is Deshaun Watson's card now,
Wow.
the quarterback of the Houston Texans. And he posted a picture, and Timbaland was there at a lunch, and they had that Rock PSA 10 as a prop, for their lunchtime meal. And so now it's, I think, taken like a cultural phenomenon as far as just being an iconic card. And what I'll say is about the Rock is even professional athletes, even entertainers, he's just on another level. So here you have people with, deep pockets, big money, and if they could have a little piece of the Rock and have his first appearance card, I think they're going to jump on it. And we're seeing a lot of big time celebrity, big time money coming into the hobby. So that card's a monster now, and there's no bringing it back.
And to say, shout out to The Rock because The Rock last year, and this might have helped his sports card, I guess value. He won Person of the Year, like all around Person of the Year in 2020. So that might have helped. But I was going to ask you my next question because this is something I've been trying to understand. What are the key factors in making a sports car significant other than, I guess we know The Rock is being The Rock, but what are some other things for maybe other wrestlers that could help sports cars increase in values, particularly in wrestling, since we on the topic of wrestling?
Yeah, I think one of the safest bets is just collecting the best. I know the term out there that's thrown around often is the GOATs, the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong with those. And I think, you know, sometimes they don't increase as quickly as you want, but you're never going to go wrong with
Gotcha.
collecting the best of the best. I know, especially in like other sports, there's a lot of people prospecting on, the latest rookies and thinking, there's going to be the next big thing. And I think with some of those people, they might be holding the bag at the end with a failed prospect. But if you're investing in, the Tom Brady's, the Michael Jordans, the Hulk Hogan's, the Rocks, all of those, and especially if you get them in a high grade from PSA, I'm a PSA honk,
That's a PSA.
you're going to do well. I just don't feel like you're going to lose.
What about short term collecting as far as like, I guess I don't want to say day trading because I think cars is a little bit different, but similar in a way. Like, what about current stars of today? Because we have stars today who could reach these levels of greatness. Like I have a Randy Orton PSA 10, and I think Randy Orton is somebody. I'm sure you watch wrestling if you collect wrestling cards. You're familiar with Randy Orton. Big E, I have a Big E PSA 10. So I think I don't know about now, but what would you say would be the best or proper use of this card currently? Like, is it something that I should hold for like a long term to see if they get to the Rocks level, or do you think it's something that's like, sports cards could die off later on in life? You should probably try to do what you can with it in the immediate
So do you
term.
have the Randy Orton Royal Rumble PSA 10?
I don't have the Randy Orton Royal Rumble PSA 10. I
Okay, so that's his rookie card that is going to be of the highest value
I got you.
in that 2002 Royal Rumble. I personally, and maybe it's a weakness of mine as a collector, is I generally just stay away from modern. And
Mm,
I love the more of, the wrestlers from my generation as a kid and all the
hmm
nostalgia of the 80s and the 90s. And a lot of my interest pretty much ends at the Attitude Era. Although, I come from an amateur wrestling background, and I love, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, those kind of guys that I've seen on a, college wrestling mat, or,
hmm
watching Kurt Angle win a world title in Atlanta in '95. So I just really love those guys.
So it's good to go with legends. Um,
Yeah, you're not going to lose.
Not gonna lose with
And
legends.
especially the legends in the TV era. And I think one of the things for us wrestling, because I even have a lot of the old stuff and the Parker sets from the 50s and all that, but nobody watched them wrestle. And a lot of those are hard to get in high grades. So, there's some collectors in there, but it's much more milder interest than the wrestlers that people have seen before, which makes
Mm.
sense.
Do you see any card reaching a million? I guess in the next couple of years, or like maybe like 2 years. Do you see a card touching $1 million in the wrestling community?
Now, I think that one's a tough one because $1 million is $1 million, and even for other sports cards to reach $1 million, that's a lofty goal.
hmm
The Michael Jordan rookie, and Michael Jordan, of course, is just incredible. Now, I think that's going to be $1 million card, and we've seen a couple auctions through Golden where that reached two cards reached 720,000,
hmm
and that's going to be $1 million card.
I got you.
But as far as wrestling, what the limit is, where I think as far as wrestling goes, the card that's probably going to achieve the highest of heights is probably the Rock Bumblebee, that
That
Miami
one card.
football card.
Mm,
But I think, it has to hit 100,000, which I think it's knocking on the door. It's going
mm.
to end up reaching there. And where it goes beyond that, I don't know. But it sure helps when you have people like Deshaun Watson, Gary V,
People backing it up.
and people backing it up.
Mm.
But, $1 million, that's a high threshold.
So let me ask you this: say we have a wrestling fan uh, who's wealthy. I would say a wealthy wrestling fan. Would you say that they could come in and deem a card valuable based on their prestige alone? Is that possible? Somebody who's popular, maybe has a little bit of fame, a lot of fame, but who has a lot of money and influence in wrestling, could they come in and say this card is worth this much? And will the market shift that way if so?
You know, I don't want to, underestimate how much someone could influence markets.
hmm
Just because you see someone like Gary Vee, if he posts something on Twitter, and the thing with like The Rock is when he posts about those auctions and being humbled about those sales, all it does is add fuel to the fire to that collectible. Because
hmm
if The Rock posts about his own auction, and he has twice, I think he posted about that $14,000 sale and the $46,000 sale. And he has all of these followers. So he's going to reach out to 225 million followers on his social media platforms.
Right.
That's going to add to it. But I don't think someone's just going to come in here and tell the wrestling card market, this is, a very expensive card. To me, the most iconic wrestling card out there, a true wrestling card, is the 1982 Wrestling All Stars Hulk Hogan rookie card.
That's the
The
one with the.
problem with that one
Mhm.
is that there's never been a PSA 10 of that card.
Never.
Now that should be the card of cards if that ever appears in a PSA 10, but you're talking about a card that's almost 4 decades in, and there's no PSA 10s now. And so it just might not happen.
I
And
got you.
I think some of these celebrity collectors that come in, they just want 10s. And they don't recognize that sometimes the nine's the best you're gonna get.
Yeah,
And
and
so
and the age could be better than just having a new 10. Like if you have an older, like you
Oh
said, like a
yeah,
four
the
decade
Hulk
though.
Hogan 9 is an incredible card.
Mm,
And there are a lot of things with the manufacturer that made it hard to achieve a 10 status. Many people think, oh, you have a sealed pack that you could get a 10. I've busted some of those little cello packs and they're tightly around the cards, and I get all excited just because of the possibilities of what could be in there. But then, my Hogan comes back a 7, which is really a great grade. I think there's
yeah.
some on eBay right now, and they're over
Hmm.
$2,000 each. But
But from that
there's a big
same.
difference between a 7 and a 10. I'll tell you
Right.
that.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. So you have right now, I think the cards that drew me into asking you for this conversation that we're having are the rock. You have not the Bumblebee rocks, but you have a different type of rock card. Is that correct? I know, are those PSA 10s too?
Yes. So
You
there
don't have
was
them
a
around, do you?
warehouse find in Cairo, Egypt, where Panini had made some stickers of WWF stars, and a lot of the expert collectors, and I would consider myself in that group, didn't even know of their existence. I quickly bought some boxes, and then I ended up buying a case, cracked open a bunch of them. I saw some that looked good. I paid a premium service to get them graded right away. And I was thrilled that I was able to get two PSA 10s of the wrestling rookie of The Rock. And he's on there as Rocky Maivia.
Oh,
And
that's
that
nice.
was released in 1997. I also had the album because I needed the backup, because the authentication companies need to know where this stuff comes from. So I took photos from front to back, sent it all to them. Panini's a real known company and was able to get it done, fortunately. And so, yeah, I have two PSA 10s of the Rock's rookie wrestling card,
Yeah,
which
and
I think is more of a wrestling rookie. And most people would view his college football card as
yeah, that's
like
what I
an
was looking.
XRC.
I saw that too, and I was like, I was blown away that first of all he was in a football uniform, you know what I mean, and the car sold for that much, and it was tied to wrestling and not college football or just football in general. I think the wrestling community, well, I guess everybody gravitated to it equally. I saw a Goldberg up there for like the same, but I don't think Goldberg has the potential to reach the same level as The Rock as far as his Georgia
No,
football.
and to be honest, you have people like The Rock and Hulk Hogan. They're in a stratosphere all their own. Just below that, you could have people like Ric Flair, Andre the Giant, kind of in there. And below that, you might have some people like Ultimate Warrior and some others.
What about those out? What
So,
about those? What about some people that we would consider legends who might have cards like let's say if a China PSA 10 came up, or like an Elizabeth, or people who are deceased who actually made an impact to wrestling, like what would you say those cards would be? I mean, I know we're talking about the Mount Rushmores, but what about the people who are around the Mount Rushmores? Like what kind of value do they have, or with the PSA
you
mark?
know, I could say something right now, and in another week, it could be more.
Yeah.
It's just the way the market's headed.
Mm.
I get there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this price was attained, and then that same card could come up, and 2 weeks later, and it's more. So the market is just fire, and I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely a lot more strategic in my opportunities. But if you see high grade anything, 9s and 10s, I think the problem with maybe some of the female wrestlers is that their careers many times don't go on as long as some of the men
Mm.
or the male wrestlers. You look at someone like Undertaker and having 3 decades in the business, and that's a lot of fans that you could develop over 3 decades. And
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how many years China had in the business, but it was she was really big for a short period of time and then kind of disappeared. So,
Mm.
I think
Gotcha.
in some ways that's going to limit your overall collectability if, you're a short timer.
So I saw something with Gary Vee. He was talking about how sports cars could replace, not replace, but I guess be considered new versions of contemporary art. Now, do you see this being something that could go as big as it being displayed on a wall, or like you go somewhere and it's like, and you know how they have the shit just all fancy, nice setup and whatnot, like a case. Say if you went in for jewelry, you went to a jewelry counter. Do you see like sports cars being something like that, laid out behind like a jewelry counter, XYZ, or framed or hung up like a piece of artwork?
Yeah, and in some ways, the encapsulation process of our authenticators do that for us. You know, I could even a novice, someone that comes and visits me at my house, I could hand them a card in a case and be comfortable with them holding it, and they're going to get a reaction out of it.
Yeah, because
And looking at a Hulk Hogan card and being like, "Wow!" And to be honest, as far as my Rocky Maivia PSA 10 Panini, I'm consigning that to Golden Auctions during the month of March. I have no idea what it's going to bring. I'm going to let the market decide what it's worth because I really don't know myself.
Mhm.
But when I went to the FedEx shipping place, the guy said, "Hey, can I take that out of the box and photograph it for, the insurance purposes of getting it from California to New Jersey?" And I just said, "No, let me take it out of a box." But he looked like a guy that, to be honest, had no interest in trading cards. And I took it out of the box, out of the wrap, and put it on the counter. And his first reaction was, "Wow, that's cool." And I was like, "Well, you know who that is, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's The Rock." And I go, "Yeah, it's The Rock. It's his rookie wrestling card." And he was taking photos just for the shipping purposes and the insurance purposes. And he was like, "Man, thank you, so much for showing me that." And it was really cool to see his reaction. And to me, that was a sign of him really appreciating it, of what it was. As you said, a little piece of art from
Mhm.
1997. If you look at this, he has all kinds of hair. His body was a lot different then than what it is today. And, it was him as a wrestler and not the quote entertainer that he is today. And so, that's modern art in itself.
Thank you. And I'm glad that I got you on here tonight. I didn't realize your expertise was this extensive, but I want to say first and foremost, I'm glad that I have you on here to share a little bit more value to everybody, because myself included, was a little unknowledgeable about how this all works. So I definitely want to stay in touch with you. But let me ask you this real quick. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Which wrestling card, I guess, what was the rarest wrestling card that you ever had that you, I guess, maybe sold too early or wish you didn't sell, or X, Y, and Z? I'm sure you got a story on a card, like one of your famous cards over 22 years.
Oh, yeah, I have a few. So I just got into the grading game in 2007. And so I had the 1982 Wrestling All Star set. I busted that open. I saw the Hulk Hogan card. I sent it to PSA. It came back at 9. I was only into the set for around 55, 60 bucks. I put that thing on eBay for $135 and someone snagged it right
That same
away.
Hulk Hogan card that we were talking about earlier.
So this Hulk Hogan was a PSA 9, and the buyer snatched it up, and then it just disappeared for a long time. And so I always wondered what happened to it. And then this last summer, I saw it listed for around $9,000 or best offer. And I really needed it because what he had done is he took it out of the 9 holder, had Hogan sign it, and got it reslabbed. And he got a 9 grade once again.
Mm.
And so it was on eBay for a period of time for 9,000, and we were actually communicating a little bit, and I said, "Hey, I sold you that card." And he said, "Oh, it's good to reconnect." And he
Mm-hmm.
was willing to work with me. And I think if I would have ponied up around $6,500, 7,000, I probably could have got it back in my collection after all these years. But I was like, "Man, that's a lot of money," and the market hadn't taken off like it has now. And so I just couldn't justify paying that kind of money for it. And then he consigned it to Probstein and then it went for over 20,000 when it went in a true auction. And then it got auctioned again, and then it went for $36,000. And
That
that was
same
my
car.
card, but I didn't have it signed. But that legendary card in the wrestling card hobby started off in the Wrestling Card King collection.
Damn. So on eBay right now, are the cards, would you say that wrestling cards right now on eBay are currently underpriced? Did you say it's a gold mine right now for wrestling card collecting, or would you say that?
To be honest, I haven't been buying a lot just because a lot of the prices are much higher than what I'm used to. But I think we can't afford to look back and see what the prices used to be, because I don't think they're going back to what they were.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I think for myself, a good move for me, instead of paying a lot of these high prices, is just going through my collection. I have boxes upon boxes and getting a lot of stuff slabbed that has a lot of value, or that could potentially have a lot of value if it's a high PSA grade card. So those are kind of like the moves that I'm making right now. I think for the longest time that wrestling had no respect in the hobby. People would make fun of it, say, why do you want to collect half naked guys or guys in shorts or tights? And why would you want to be looking at that? But
right.
at the same time, something like the Three Stooges was a very valuable set in the hobby. And to me, cards are cards, and we're more alike than different. And many people have a connection to wrestling in some way growing up.
Right.
And these guys are characters. And my friend David Peck and I, we talk about it as far as one of our examples that we say is, if Mike Schmidt was in the airport, he might be able to walk through that airport and nobody recognize who he is. But you put Hulk Hogan coming off a plane, walking through there, the place is going to go bananas. Definitely. Seeing the Hulkster walk through. Definitely. And some of these wrestlers, you can't deny them. Think about The Rock going through one of our airports, or the Hogan, or back in the day, Andre the Giant. There's just something different about these guys. They're like real life Marvel characters. They have superheroes, stature. It's just kind of like basketball players just trying to like go through airports as well. Like Michael Jordan walking through an airport, it's going to go around fast, And that's what these wrestlers have that a lot of professional athletes just don't. Well, there's a wow factor, and I've even had collectors on websites or the forums that collectors participate in, and they said when Hogan comes and he's signing at the National or at this card show, there's a buzz that's different than when other pro athletes are there signing.
Of course.
There's just a wow factor.
Damn. Well, thank you, Mr. Rob England. I don't want this to be the last time we talk. I think since the wrestling sports card market is hot right now, I definitely want to have you back on here to share your expertise and provide value to anyone who's listening. It'll definitely help me out. So I want to first start off by saying thank you for taking time out of your day all the way in LA. I mean, not LA, but North California, to jump on the Rolling Pin podcast with me.
Absolutely. And people want to find me on Twitter. I'm Wrestling Card King.
Wrestling Card King. That's it.
Or Wrestling Card K1 is my official handle.
But he's the king. But he's the king of card collecting. Wrestling card collecting. That's what we talking to. All right, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You have a good one. I'll be in contact with you.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
All right. Bye.